from the rock, like honey from the rock, honey from the rock. Good morning, everyone. Let's remove this thing here. Good morning. It is a beautiful day today, and I hope you're having a great day. I haven't figured out how to route the music so you hear music from the microphone, and that doesn't sound super great, but I was jamming to Honey from the Rock by Kelsey Breedlove. It's a good little song. Hope you had a good night. Those of you who were at church with us yesterday, we had a phenomenal time together in church, and I hope you were blessed. Nova, good morning. JC, good morning. Bjorn, good morning. Blessing, good morning. Love seeing Blessy smile right at the greeting area yesterday. It was phenomenal. Bjorn, Kevin, Beata, Lori, good morning. Imelda, Grace, Lassette, good morning. Great seeing you. And it's phenomenal. Today is chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians. And you will notice in these readings that this is really how, and I've said this here before, but this is how many of the churches model not only their theology, but their ecclesiology. And ecclesiology is the study of how a church runs and its customs. It's not necessarily just the way you see God, but the customs, the culture, and it's not, which some of these things are not a matter of salvation. It's not like, okay, he's writing here, their salvation hangs on the ballot, right? Their relationship with God hangs on the ballot. It's more about how the church in relation to culture was supposed to present itself. So when I was little, we grew up in a church where this might surprise you. We grew up in a church where women couldn't cut their hair and men couldn't wear shorts or have long hair. And this is the passage in 1 Corinthians 11 that was the root for those customs. What happens sometimes is that depending on culture, and I know there's a lot of churches around us that still practice these things, and it's not something to condemn. If the people want to follow it, great. But this is not a matter of salvation. And for us, you might think, why don't we do this? It's about the spirit in simple terms. It's about the spirit of the letter and not the actual specific thing on the letter. Let me give you an example. He writes in chapter 4 or verse 4, every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. But every wife who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since it is the same as if her head were shaven. For if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. So this is a matter of culture, perception, what was perceived as honorable or disgraceful by people around them. And Paul is saying here, we should be excellent. We should go a step above of the world, always. Not that the world dictates how we live, but we should live above reproach. Does that make sense? So then he goes a little bit more about ecclesiology here in terms of behavior in church specifically. But then he finalizes and says, nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor man of woman. For as woman was made from man, so man is now born of woman, and all things are from God. So he brings an equilibrium in the conversation, because he starts by saying God is the head, then the man, then the woman, and he creates this three-tier relationship. But that's not really what he's saying. He's creating a flow of authority for the local church, but then he's saying we're all equal in Christ. Judge for yourselves. This is really key. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a wife to pray to God with her head uncovered? So that's what he deals with here. And then he puts a very pastoral guidance. If anyone is inclined to be contentious, we have no such practice, nor do the churches of God, period. In other words, we're not going to discuss this. This is the way it's going to be. I'm your pastor. This is how we're going to run things. So like I said, ecclesiology is the practice of customs and how a church runs. This is not a matter of salvation. Then he goes into the Lord's Supper. Now he gives guidance on how to receive communion. But in the following instructions, I do not commend you, because you come together. When you come together, it is not for the better, but for the worse. So he's saying your communion practices are out of whack. For there must be factions among you, in order that those who are genuine among you may be recognized. So he's saying now we have to make a separation between those who are practicing it right and those who are practicing it wrong. I have to make a distinction here. Well, here's how they were eating. Here's how they were eating communion. For in eating, each one goes ahead with his own meal. One goes hungry, another one gets drunk. What? Do you not have houses to eat and drink in? Or do you despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I commend you in this? No, I will not. So people were coming together for communion, and they were having a meal together, but they were doing it for themselves. They were stuffing themselves without having